Sean Dylan Kelly has, at the age of 16, been on the Supersport podium 5 times this year. In Supersport Race 1 at Sonoma, he suffered a mighty setback. Did he whine and quit? No. He got right back on that Gixxer 600 and overcame the next obstacle. Grid positions in Race 2 are based on lap times in Race 1. Tell me about this race. You started dead last on the grid and you went all the way to 6th place and you were almost 5th. Talk me through it.
Man, absolutely. This race was really crazy. Obviously, starting from last was not an easy task. Man, after yesterday was pretty intense for me. Pretty lucky to be here, first of all. Pretty lucky to have been able to race in the first place. It was very difficult, to be honest. Starting from last, was very physical. First of all, this is probably the most physical track, and every session I went out, I haven't been able to do more than a few laps without getting arm pump. And I told myself, I'm like, man, I don't know how much I could do of 19 laps, but I said, you know what, I'm in last place. I can only go one way in terms of position, so.
At the end of the first lap, you had to have made up 5-6 places right there.
I actually think I made up a little bit more than that. I think I made almost 10 places in the first lap. Actually, first lap, second corner, there was a pretty big crash. Someone went off track and there was a bunch of dirt everywhere across the bike was crossing the track, and everyone was kind of going wide, and I was obviously back there, so that was just barely the second corner, so I was like, oh man, very difficult, after that. That crash actually made up a pretty big gap between the first 15 or so. So I already had like 2 seconds or so on the first lap. So,
what was your mindset?
Man, honestly, I was kind of surprised when I realized that the first 3 or 4 laps that the front group wasn't really getting away too much. I realized I was still able to see the first guys. Everyone fighting there, and I was telling myself, I'm like, oh, all right, my pace must not be too bad. So that gave me a little bit of some more confidence. I was feeling good on the bike, and in the back of my head was a little bit of this arm pump issue. I was like, man, I hope I don't get too smoked too quickly, but obviously I was just giving my absolute best. I wasn't giving up from lap 1, and I realized that I was able to reel them in one by one, and obviously the top guys, the top 5, was starting to open up a little bit of a gap. So I just went one by one, and a shame I didn't have a few more laps. I think if I would have had 5, I would have been extra dead, but I think I would have been a little bit closer too. So I think that was a pretty good training.
Now, you were telling your crew chief that in the last couple of laps, coming out of the carousel, the bike was just sliding beautifully.
This whole weekend, we obviously been working on a few things with the bike. There's always the good, there's always the bad. And out of the second gear corners, which obviously there's a lot of those, the bike was, reacting in a little bit different way. But coming out of the other corners, where 3rd or 4th gear corners, the bike was actually sliding super nicely. So that was actually pretty enjoyable. The last laps, obviously the tire was pretty smoked in the rear, and it was just coming down the carousel, the bike would lift up a little bit, and it just burned the whole thing around. So definitely had fun. It was funny because I was so done with my hands that in some parts of the track I was just grabbing and just letting my wrist fall on the throttle, just opening completely. So difficult but fun.
Congratulations, man. It's a good ride.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to my whole M4 XR Suzuki team for all their work, for the great bike, and for always believing in me.